still aboard Megan's ship? Feels odd.
Well now, someone is awfully picky about their housing conditions. Although I guess considering she's an empress that's not too surprising, although the fact that we're locked in here is... Oh.
What is this place? Where am I?
Yeah, we're not on Megan's ship anymore. Not exactly. We're in the Void. A location of sorts from the first game, although visually it looks a lot different. It looks a lot more like deep under the sea now.
I can feel something moving closer. Watching.
Empress Emily Caldwin. I am a friend of your father's from the bad old days. I never expected us to meet. I watched your mother die at the hands of schemers who wanted your little empire. Then you were rescued by a man in a strange mask. I thought that was the end of the excitement. But someone yanked the rug from under your feet. You've lost your throne and your father. And I promise, Delilah won't just give them back. So, what are you prepared to do about it? Your Imperial Majesty? And are you clever enough to do it without spilling a river of blood? I asked Corvo those questions 15 years ago. This is the moment that changed him. Now it's your turn.
It burns from the inside. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something. All the stories, they're true.
So, we now have the Far Reach ability.
Incredible.
It does exactly what you think it would.
This is how I'm going to save my father and reclaim the throne.
Notably, unlike the fast travel option from the first game, Corvo's Blink, this actually utilizes physics. This can be both to your detriment and to your advantage, depending on how you use it.
Corvo mentioned being here once.
I know you. Do you remember? It's been so long, and you've been through so much. Even as an echo of myself, it's good to know you're there.
Mother? You're here, but you're not here. In my hand, but somewhere else.
Only the last of my essence, with you for a while. If only I could reach across this great expanse and take you into my arms. But I have this to offer. My gift and my curse. Summon me to your hand, and I will guide you when I can.
So unlike the first game, which was incredibly coy about the heart being Emily's mom, here they come straight out with it.
There are no stars in the sky here. There is no sky. You shouldn't be here. No one should. In thousands of years, few have seen this place. 3 were empresses. There's a strange power in this place.
Who is Delilah really? How could she? I don't understand.
So here we have a list of targets for the game. Delilah, Duke, Luca Abel, and 3 unknowns. You notice that Captain Ramsey was not among them.
There's no one quite like Delilah. I watched her pull herself up from blood and filth, until she was in a position to steal from the wisest scholars in the Empire. Survival and ambition, art and magic, with a cunning that makes fawning sycophants of those around her, all of it leading to what you saw at Dunwall Tower. Delilah's playing the long game. She took all the abuse the world could deal out, and now she has a crown. But I'll let you in on a secret. She's got her eyes set on a much greater prize.
When I was 10 years old, bored with my lessons, I dreamed about sword fighting and sailing the ocean. Now I'm realizing that the world is stranger than I ever imagined. Everything I know has been turned on its head, but I'm dealing with it the best I can. When you look at the great jeweled map at Dunwall Tower, Karnaca is the southernmost port in the Empire. A fat, red ruby. That's how I always thought of it. Up close, the city smells like the ocean and strange spices. Up close, it's a tangled story of blood and ambition. The birthplace of my father. Megan Foster is a stranger, but there's something that makes me want to trust her, despite her guarded disposition. She got me out of Dunwall, and I need answers. Delilah and the Duke made me look like a murderer, using the Crown Killer to butcher my political adversaries. They took what was mine, and I'm gonna get it back.
So now we awaken on the actual dreadful whale. This stuff right here, these 2 bone charms, this book, and this guitar off in the corner, are all pre-order bonuses. Yes, one of the pre-order bonuses is a random item that you can interact with only here in the ship. Sadly, Emily's not exactly good at playing it. This journal you can fill with entries after each mission, and depending on how you perform that mission, the entries will be different. Whether you took out the target lethally or non-lethally, certain actions you take, etc. It's a nice little touch to things. I just wish the font was a little bit more legible. I'll be transcribing those in the thread as well. Or by transcribing, I mean just copy-pasting these summaries from the rather competent Dishonored wiki. Oh? What's this here? It seems Megan is a truly excellent hostess, providing us with all we could need, by which I mean a crossbow. No clumsy guns for Emily here. As well as a nice starting fund. We should really thank her. Perhaps we can do so by unlocking this room that she's been having trouble with. Well, we'll get to that after we talk with her.
Must be cursed. Daft old man. This is some shit. Back to that city. What would we have done in the old days? All sharp metal and shadows, we'd say.
A rather odd thing to say.
You're up. When you're ready to talk, I'll tell you what I know.
All right. You've explained part of it. But what were you and Sokolov doing here?
The old man loved Karnaca, but he'd caught wind of a conspiracy tied to the Crown Killer. He wanted to warn Corvo.
There were reports about tensions rising, corruption, street violence. I didn't give it much mind. Usually the local authorities resolve that sort of thing.
The new Duke has let things slide. But Sokolov concluded he might be the head of the conspiracy. He came in looking shocked, and if you've heard his after-dinner stories, you know that's unusual. We were going to set out for Dunwall, but something happened.
The Crown Killer.
Yes, the hatch ripped open and Sokolov screamed. All I caught was a glimpse of someone carrying him across the deck. I followed as long as I could, toward Addermeyer Institute. It's run by the alchemist Hypatia. Maybe the Duke is using a patient of hers, the Crown Killer.
Addermeyer. All right. I'll get inside. The Crown Killer has to be eliminated, and if the Alchemist will cooperate, maybe I can learn something about what happened to Sokolov. Wish me luck.
If you need my luck, Sokolov's as good as dead. When you get done at the Institute, disable the watchtower. Once it's down, I'll bring the boat around. We'll take the skiff to the shore when you're ready.
Well, before we do that, let's check out Megan's detective board here.
Mortimer Ramsey. The Duke couldn't have pulled off the coup without someone inside the City Watch. I don't know Duke Luca Abel, but Corvo served under Luca's father and said Theodanis was a good man. Delilah. My aunt, if that's really true. She has a twisted way of looking at the world. This Dr. Hypatia, she seems to represent the good that's possible within the Empire. So the Crown Killer was a tool of the Duke's coup. The murders had a calculated effect. Sokolov seems so much older now.
Adamaya solution. It's made from blood flies, oh no.
It looks like the overland route to the Addermeyer Institute goes through the carriage station.
No new info, but useful.
Why is this here? It's Delilah.
It seems Sokolov was working on a new painting before he was unceremoniously abducted.
I'll always miss my lessons with Anton Sokolov. He made so many clever devices during my mother's time.
Yeah, Sokolov was such a wacky old coot, inventing all sorts of crazy things like walls that incinerate people alive and performing cruel experiments by purposely infecting civilians with the rat plague. What a cod. Yeah, if you played the first Dishonored, the way that this game characterizes Sokolov, even taking into consideration the fact that around a decade has passed between the games, is a little bit odd. That note we picked up is especially worth reading, by the way, if you're playing the game, as it tells you some useful information about blood flies. So, one thing I admit that I goofed on. I should stop being so authoritative about things I'm not 100% sure about. You can play audiographs on the go. The issue is you have to start it, stop it, and then go into your inventory to reactivate it. So, not perfect, but still better than I originally made it out to be.
I have something that you and Corvo must hear at the first opportunity. It concerns the murders happening across the Empire, committed by this so-called Crown Killer. When I left Bristol years ago, I swore I'd never again take part in any further political matters. I've done my share of bad things, and some good, before and after the Rat Plague. But here in Karnaca, I've uncovered a terrible conspiracy against you. Here, at the bottom of the Empire, the cobblestones smell of death and corruption. I'm staying with an associate, Megan Foster, aboard her vessel, the Dreadful Whale. We'll leave for Dunwall in the morning, as soon as the tides are willing. I keep thinking of the way sweet Jessamine was stolen from you and your father, and I fear it might be your turn to face such turmoil. I know Corvo would protect you with his life, but please do not trust anyone.
There you are, old man. I was asked to pay you a visit.
Wait, what's wrong with you? Megan!
Off we go, Sokolov, to somewhere more private.
Well, that sure was an interesting audiograph now, wasn't it? And can I just point out, Megan had trouble accessing this room. That's why she left that note about it as a thing to do. Apparently, she never thought to just, go in from the outside, even though being the ship's captain and pretty much the only one who runs it, she should know about, right? It's just a bit awkward of a scenario, I suppose. And that note right there, at first when you read it, it seems like it might just be flavor detail, but it's worth keeping what it says in mind. Namely, it covers that, unlike Dunwall, which uses whale oil to power most of their machinery, Karnaca primarily uses wind power. Being a coastal territory, it is far more efficient. Keep that in mind. It'll be relevant sooner rather than later. Well, and later too, but it'll be relevant pretty quickly is what I'm saying. Also, speaking of coastal territory...
The jewel of the South. My father's birthplace.
This game is fucking gorgeous. Of course, with the PS4 version in particular, that comes with the price of some frame drops in places. Oddly enough, they are more common earlier on in the game. I think that's because where they really put all their graphical processing capability to give the most wow factor when you first start up the game. We'll see that when we begin the mission proper, but before we do that, we want to check out the heart here because there is a rune hidden around where the dreadful whale is. It's not quite dark, but it's still in the middle of the water. I'm sure there's a nautical term specifically for that. This is the first rune, aside from the 2 freebies that the outsider gives us, that we can pick up. Make sure you don't miss it because it's very easy to acquire, but also easy to miss, if you don't notice the objective pointing it out. We'll see what we can do with runes a bit later.
Ready for me to drop you at the docks?
Let's go see the streets where my father grew up.
Off we go then.
It won't do to be recognized.
And that's why we're going to cover only the bottom half of our face. The good old reverse Clark Kent.
I'd take you to Adamire by boat, but security's too tight. The Grand Guard have a watchtower there. Go inland and use the carriage station. Before his death, the old Duke of Serkono spent decades building up Karnaca. After Duke Luca Abel took over, he started draining the wealth out of the city as fast as he could. Orgies and week-long feasts.
Having more fun here than we were in Dunwall, it seems.
Watch yourself on the way to Adamire. The Duke's given the Grand Guard run of the city. Strangers get attacked on sight.
I'll keep my head down.
This is a good spot. Reach Adamire, take out the Crown Killer, and find out where Sokolov was taken. The alchemist, Hypatia. She'll help if she can. Sokolov likes her.
I'll see you later at Adamire. Just wait to bring up the boat until after I've disabled the watchtower.
Yeesh, that frame rate.
Things happen, they say. Not safe, they say. I got news for them.
Well, it seems Delilah has been pretty busy here in Karnaca. Already has banners proclaiming her reign here. And yeah, I can't fault the game too much on its poor frame rate here because, for the most part, it's quite smooth. And this level is just so gorgeous that I think it's worth the occasional drops.
Welcome to Karnaca, stranger.
Oh, the people here are so friendly.
Who's that out there? You know the skipper?
The dreadful whale. No, it's not on the registry. Maybe one of the recent importers from Warwick.
Let's give it a day or two. If she's still there, I can ask a friend who's with the Grand Guard to take a squad on board and conduct a search. Give the crew time to load up whatever contraband they're no doubt waiting on.
I need new boots.
Good talk. They give us a piece of the confiscation?
Yeah, we pass it along to another ship at a discount. Then we all split the take.
Just don't forget about me.
One of the great things that Dishonored 2 does that very few other stealth games bother with, and that even the first Dishonored used only sparingly, is non-hostile zones. You're not always forced to skulk about in the shadows, avoiding the eyesight of everyone you meet. There are neutral territory where, as long as you don't do anything too suspicious, you can just wander about and enjoy the sights.
You still eat meat? All the blood flies and all. I'm not sure it's safe.
Of course I am.
I mean, I trust my butcher, but how can he be sure there aren't any of those filthy grubs in my steak?
I just boil everything. Simple as that. tastes like shoe leather, but it's better than eating bloodfly larvae. Am I right?
I only buy meat if I see the animal killed in front of me. And I cook it right away.
That's another solution. Yeah, I miss the days when you could look at a dinner plate without having nightmares.
As well as all sorts of world-building idle conversations. Oh well, that's not great. They got a wanted poster up for us already. Fortunately though, having a slightly masked face is a perfect disguise. Also, while trying to pilfer this message that this man is carrying, he kind of ends up freaking out. I'm not really sure why. It's not bad enough to count as a detection, but it is enough to set off their panic AI a little bit. I think it might have happened because I bumped into him. The interactions in this game can be a little bit strange at times.
Hello there.
Oh, hi.
You're not from here, am I right? Welcome to Karnaca, then.
For as much as the Duke has been running roughshod over this country, the people still seem pretty pleasant. Unfortunately, they're still probably going to take us to task thanks to the propaganda machine that Delilah has wheeled out.
Careful with that sword. Grand Guard won't like it.
Give him a chance to tell his side.
It wasn't his fault, Runner. I'm sorry, every now and then one of those Grand Guard bastards pulls a stunt like that. It's getting worse. But I might be able to help you out.
We're listening.
There's a stack of goods that no one's claimed in one of the holding warehouses. I happen to know that no one's gonna claim it ever, because it was dropped from a boat, loading up for Freightport. It's good stuff. Spices and dried fish. Maybe worth more than what you lost.
That's a good deal, Maya.
Oh, thank you, Ramus.
All right. Still not fair than just taking what was ours, but we appreciate what you're offering. If it's like you say, and we can find buyers, then it'll get us through the next month.
Good, good. Look, I wish I could have stopped him. Just meet me here again tomorrow, okay? Same time.
We'll be here.
It's nice to see people solve their differences amicably, and you know, not just beheading one another at the slightest pretense. Anyway, we're going to do a little bit of cheating here and use some foreknowledge that I have. That buoy over here is something of a marker. A marker for some hidden underwater treasure. There is another way that you can locate this cache, but it costs a bit of money, so I'm perfectly fine with using my prior knowledge from prior playthroughs here to my advantage. Oh yeah, look at that frame rate drop. Well, at least there's no screen tearing here in this version. They got that VSync locked down hard. And fortunately, this first level here, right by the coast in particular, is pretty much the only place in the game where the frame rate ever gets this bad, on the PS4 version at least. I think even on PC, if you don't have beefy hardware, this place ends up chugging a bit. So our ultimate destination is Adamaya off in the distance. And to do so, we're going to have to take that railway. Unfortunately, we can't just warp our way up there. It's a little bit too far away, even for the far reach that we have. So we're going to have to take the scenic route here. I have actually tried to see if I could glitch my way up there, but I've never managed it. I wouldn't be surprised if a speedrunner has, though.
Fellow Sir Conan, in the Duke's absence, I have the following announcement. New restrictions are now in place due to the political assassinations conducted in the name of the former Empress Emily Caldwell and carried out by the former Royal Protector, Corvo Attano. The Grand Sir Conan Guard will be stopping and questioning all foreigners and new workers on the streets of Karnaca. Compliance is mandatory.
Delilah's propaganda machine is a well-oiled beast.
An underground market. Illegal trade means weapons and ammunition.
Or should I say a well-winded beast, considering the power source here in Karnaca? So, these little signs tell you your way to the black market. Kind of a bit obvious that, but who am I to say?
Don't be greedy, friend.
This seems a little bit run down for a black market, but here you go.
Oh, you're kind, thank you. If you want to get past that wall of light, I've heard people sneaking through this blood fly-infested apartment. Going through there will get you to the other side of that Grand Guard checkpoint.
Oh, you're just a random bum. My mistake. Well, you did give us some useful advice, so we won't raid your supplies nor question why you have tranquilizer dots.
Duke is drunk half the time. And if the Howlers don't rob you, he gets shaken down by the Grand Guard. See you sometime.
Such a polite vagrant. Seriously, the people here in Karnaca are so friendly considering the poor conditions of the country.
Hey, come here.
Oh, you mean me?
I have something that might interest you.
Oh?
My name's Mindy Blanchard, and you look like someone who goes into places where you don't belong. Wanna help me with something? You scratch my ass, I'll scratch yours.
I need to get to Addermeyer Institute. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, I know how to do that. You go get a body for me, and I'll help you with your problem. Don't worry, he's already dead.
A body? That's odd. From where?
The overseers are holding him at their outpost. They think he was a kind of a witch. I want the body for reasons of my own. Sneak in and take it, then meet me in the old basement below the dentist office near there.
I'll think about it.
Mindy Blanchard is the best character.
There's a basement nobody uses. It's below the dentist office, on the corner just down from the overseer outpost. Bring the body there.
But she's not exactly open about telling details about herself. We have our ways, though. We'll find out plenty about her backstory in due time. For now, let's complete our black market search. First of all, opening up this handy shortcut door so we don't have to take the scenic route again. It's time to do some illegal merchandising.
A new customer with coin, I bet.
Indeed. We have plenty of coin. So, at these black market shops, you can make two kinds of purchases. One for finite items, ammunition, potions, and some unique items that are available on a per-mission basis, such as the location of that underwater cache we found, as well as the occasional outsider artifact. The other type of purchase is permanent upgrades to your equipment. These are far more expensive and far more worth purchasing since, you know, they're permanent. You can make your crossbow better, your gun better, as well as upgrade your basic abilities such as a second zoom level to your telescope. Perhaps the most useful upgrade you can pick up though for a non-lethal playthrough is multiple charges out of a stun mine. This way, with your very limited stun mines you can only ever carry 3 at a time, you can potentially knock out multiple guards.
I shouldn't deal with strangers.
His wife died of an infection in the month of ice. Now it's just him to sing them to sleep and soothe their troubles.
Just showing off that you can use the hat to find out information about the random NPCs as well. Interestingly, that dialogue is somewhat randomly generated from a list, so you can get different responses there. So, although we're not purchasing that rune, we do have enough that we can actually make a few purchases with it, for either powers, active abilities you can use, or enhancements, just passive buffs. In my opinion, the best one you can purchase out of both categories is that first agility upgrade. This doubles your effective jump height, which is so useful for navigating the environment. As for the first power that we're picking up, it's a bit of a boring one, but it has a lot of useful utility, and will aid us in stealth quite a bit. It's basically the detective mode from the Batman Arkham games. Down to making a great looking game look like complete trash, so we'll be using this one sparingly. So now that we've made some deals at the black market, we are going to rob his house. We could get into his apartment in a more stealthy manner, but we have to use these grenades for something. And despite the large noise it makes, it doesn't actually alert him that anything's going on here, so it's pretty much just a quicker way of getting in here than any other. I'll be showing off the more stealthy version as we exit the place. So that was a letter from someone who was previously working at the black market shop, but ended up quitting. And notably, taking a key to the shop with them. Worth keeping in mind that little detail there. But for now, we're just gonna rob the black marketsman of his extra supplies that he's keeping up here. Various mines, atomized solutions, and some salables. All useful stuff. So yeah, if you don't want to use a grenade to force your way in, you can get in through the upper window here. Hey Mindy. You just have to do the reverse of what we're doing here. It also takes us to this little hovel where we can actually learn about whatever poor bastard used to sit in this chair. I'll leave you to read that though if you're interested, as with most of the literature.
Are we gonna let a few blood flies stop us?
I'm in. Just remember to move slowly, and don't get too close to the nests.
We don't even know if the people inside had any money. We just know they're dead, and the place is infested with blood flies.
Carl, going through there puts us on the other side of the wall of light.
If you want out of the city as bad as I do, this is our chance.
No. More likely we all get stung to death. Then we end up hatching more blood flies for the next group of idiots who try to get inside.
Damn it, Carl.
All right. Well, don't turn on each other. We'll find another way to make the coin, and another way to get past the wall of light.
So yeah, as the game not so subtly signposts you, you can head through that infested apartment if you want to get past the wall of light checkpoint, which you need to do if you want to proceed through the level. Now, we will do that, but before we muck about with those nasty little blood flies, let's head a little bit back to the beginning and check out some side areas that are very easy to miss. I missed them completely on my first playthrough, and it's because they're not exactly signposted themselves. You can notice that they're there, but you have to be paying real close attention. The first is this little apartment here. Just a single story above the docks where you start. Best to check out this man here. Sometimes he's fine with you raiding his place, other times he freaks out immediately. Best to just eliminate him to be safe. And you do absolutely want to explore his apartment, not just for those random goodies we picked up there, but for two items in particular. Ensconced safely in his safe. A whale statue worth 100 coins, and much more valuably, our first blueprint. Blueprints, along with paintings and outsider artifacts, are one of the collectibles that you can pick up in each mission. There's usually 2 or 3, maybe 4 in some of the longer missions. As for what blueprints do, they allow you to unlock new upgrades at the black market. And some of the upgrades you can get from blueprints are incredibly valuable. Invaluable depending on what kind of playthrough you're doing. So you definitely want to try and find each and every last one of them. The other place we're checking out is this little apartment up here. It's a little bit of world building here, with some random-ass woman trying to do magic with this dead body. Not to any success as far as we can see. This painting, by the way, is of another NPC from the first Dishonored. The first target that you had to take out there, High Overseer Campbell. Now, as we proceed back to the infested apartment, let's examine Farreach briefly. Corvo's equivalent, Blink, just immediately teleports you to wherever you point, whereas Emily's Farreach actually has physics. It will attempt to bring you wherever you point, but if you end up getting interrupted along the way, then you're gonna go careening into something.
It's infested, all right. Move slowly, stay away from the nests, and try to avoid getting filled with bloodfly venom and eggs.
On the plus side, you can use these physics to your advantage, as you can end up traveling far further distances than Corvo's Blink ever could take you. And yeah, the game really wants to make sure you know how to deal with these blood flies. There's that note in Sokolov's cabin, the one on that rather unfortunate dead man there, and Emily's little dialogue there. Given all of this preparation that the game gives you, you'd think they'd be dangerous, but nah. They are so easily dealt with. The nests are incredibly flammable, so all it takes is a single bottle filled with some high-proof liquor, and they just go up in flames. And sometimes end up giving you a bit of free coin from the amber that drops from them. It's a very valuable commodity. If you don't have surprisingly explosive alcohol at hand, you can rely on incendiary bolts. Or you can just run up and start slashing with your sword until you take down the nest and kill all the flies. You'd think you'd have to worry about being infested with eggs or just taking a lot of damage, but not really. Blood flies are more of a threat in lore than a threat to you, the player. Which is one of my least favorite aspects of the game. The rats in the first Dishonored, especially when they swarmed, could be pretty legitimately dangerous. But the blood flies here are pretty much never that. And in most of the areas where they are heavily infested, they usually do give you plenty of these flammable alcohol bottles to use. In case you're wondering how you're supposed to know that these bottles will explode when thrown, that is actually something that is told to you by a UI element that I have disabled. So unless you're a immersion purist like me, you'll be able to tell at a glance once you've moused over it. So, that is the first bone charm we've acquired that is not a pre-order bonus. What bone charms are accessories. They come with random bonuses generated per playthrough and as soon as you enter a mission. So save scumming the good effects is a little bit difficult, because otherwise you have to have a save beforehand and then keep going into the mission until you get the bone charm with the ability that you want. In the first Dishonored, there was actually one particular bone charm that was generated as soon as you accessed it, so you could save scum that one to get at least one good effect guaranteed. But I don't believe there is any such equivalent to that in this game. I could be wrong, however, and feel free to correct me if that is the case. So yeah, as far as bone charms go, you pretty much just have to go with what you're given. And that's rather unfortunate because, as far as I can tell, the bone charm effects you acquire aren't weighted to your particular playstyle. So you can end up playing non-lethally and as stealthily as possible, and end up getting bone charm effects that are more meant for a lethal loud playthrough, or vice versa. And this can end up being really infuriating. We'll see how the luck shakes out with this playthrough. None of the effects on the bone charms in this mission are all that great, but we still have 8 to go, so it could always improve. So this is the end of the infested apartment, and if you just want to get past the wall of light, well, you've succeeded.
Everyone is looking for me. It might pay to be discreet.
Here we can see a street filled with guardsmen. There's the wall of light, there's where we want to head. And off on the opposite end is an overseer outpost. They're currently pontificating to the enwrapped civilians. Not that the townspeople have much of a choice here. The Abbey of the Everyman, the main religious order within the Dishonored world, is very much 13th century Catholic Church as far as accusations of heresy go. They were one of the main antagonistic factions in the first Dishonored, but here they're not nearly as big of a deal. They don't have quite as firm a grip in Karnaca. So that note mentions that that deceased woman there was caring for her husband, who was a late-stage bloodfly fever victim. And unlike most late-stage victims, he didn't die. He survives as a watcher of the bloodfly's nest, a fascinating example of parasitism. And despite the fact that his life is pretty much already over and he's just a vector for the bloodfly infection now, killing him does count as the same as killing anyone else. As such, if we want to keep to our non-lethal vow, we do have to rely on tranquilizer dots. Choking would also work, but sneaking up on them is incredibly difficult. They are far more alert, and as far as I can tell, seem to be alerted if bloodflies themselves notice you. At the end of the day, it's just much easier to keep a tranquilizer dot at the ready for such circumstances as this. So, the reason to enter this especially cordoned off portion of the infected apartment is that this is the home of the former assistant of the black market shopsman. And when he quit, he did not return his key. It seems he was trying to make a little bit of extra dosh since quitting his job by harvesting bloodfly amber. As we can see, that didn't exactly turn out well for him. And considering to breed bloodflies you need to use people as their breeding grounds, and the fact that he has a copious amount of tranquilizer dots up here, I think we can guess as to what he was up to here. But we are a kind and benevolent Emily, so we shall not judge. So we've pretty much covered everything of import here in the infested apartment, so let's head the fuck out of here. If we wanted to use it as our method of attack for that one street, we could. But there are better options for that. Not to mention, we want to check out the black market one more time. First of all, we're going to turn in that blueprint we picked up.
I like how you spend.
So, this one is not particularly useful for us. All it does is allow us to purchase incendiary bolts, so we're not reliant purely on whatever ones are placed in a mission. So instead I'm going for a more generic crossbow upgrade, as well as improving the efficacy of the stun mines. Keep that in mind, the fact that the stun mines now have 3 shocks available to them. It might end up being relevant later, and not in a good way. So, with most of our money spent— oh, Mindy's gone. Let's recoup our losses a little bit by robbing the black market shop. Anytime there's a black market shop available in a mission, you have the ability to sneak in and pilfer all of its valuables. Extra munitions, treasure, and the more expensive rare items they often end up selling. Now, unfortunately, robbing the shop does require the shopkeeper to notice you, at least if you want the items that are up at his storefront. And that does end up closing the shop down, automatically even. So be plenty sure that you don't want to purchase any extra munitions or any upgrades before doing this. Otherwise, you'll be very sorry indeed. But it is far and away the best way to get through a mission with as much funds as possible. You'll not only get a lot of extra cash from the valuables you can pilfer, but you'll avoid spending more cash on the more expensive items that they sell you. Not to mention that figuring out how to rob the black market shops is a pretty tricky puzzle in some instances. This first shop, serving mostly as a tutorial, is pretty easy to figure out, but some of the later ones are really hard. They require a very fine attention for detail. So, with the black market robbed, let's start working our way to the Wall of Light again. This time via the more direct path. This will put us smack dab in front of the Wall of Light, at which point we'll have to figure out another way around, but before that, let's approach cautiously here. There's a somewhat scripted event coming up that is tricky to solve the right way.
I told you what would happen if you reported me. I warned you. Please, you gave me no choice. Please? It's too late for that, Rapallo. Guess what happens next? Back here! You won't get away!
So, a lot of things just happened there. So what happens if you don't interfere there is that one guardsman ends up pushing Apollo into the wall of light, which immediately electrifies him. If you can knock out the guardsman in time or disable the wall of light, you'll have saved him.
There's something perverse in this place.
I told you that keeping in mind that wind was the primary power source here in Kanaka would come in handy. Anytime you're outside, mechanical devices are typically powered by windmills as opposed to whale oil tanks.
Move along. We're conducting a search for heretical artifacts.
What? Here? Listen, I only need
This area is restricted on the authority of the Abbey. No one is allowed inside.
So, this is an apartment that is being searched by the overseers under suspicion that its occupant was a witch. And just taking out our heart for a second here, it seems their suspicions, for once at least, were somewhat correct, given the fact that there was a bone charm and even an outsider shrine right in that room over there. But before we check out that, one little detail over here. That's a silver graph of Mindy. And even more damning, a note from Mindy to Amadeo, the person who lived here. As you may have suspected by her tats, she was somewhat involved with the occult. Amadeo was as well, and things did not turn out well for him. I guess we know the identity of the body she wants us to deliver.
Karnaca was a lovely city once, before the Duke began choking the life out of the place. Before the Crown Killer started painting the walls red. Now you're here, and I have to wonder whether you're gonna give it that final nudge, or pull it back from the edge. We've both seen cities go bad before. Vermin, blood, and betrayal. It's happening again. I hope you're ready.
So yeah, checking out one of these outsider shrines gives you a little conversation with the fella, as well as 2 runes as compensation for your time. Oddly enough, even if you choose to do no powers mode, explicitly rejecting the outsider, you still get these conversations.
Pictures, and you will know.
Well, hello.
A young girl came to me on the 14th day of the month of harvest. I will never forget her words.
They seem to be guarding quite a few outsider artifacts over there. Unfortunately, the place is rather well guarded, but a well-aimed tranquilizer dot makes it so much easier to approach. Well, that one guardsman up on high is pretty good at spotting you no matter how you approach the location. There's really no one else watching him. So if you can take out him from afar, approaching becomes so much easier. Still wouldn't recommend doing so at street level though. That is something to be best avoided if at all possible. Here we just have a random bone charm on a dead person. It's interesting to note how pretty much all of the outsider artifacts we've come across are almost always in the possession of something dead. Whether it be a whale, or a person, or in the midst of a bloodfly nest. Might be trying to imply something with that. So, in my mind, at least if you're doing a powers playthrough, the best way to approach this overseer's building here is straight from the top. Just make sure the guards on the roof are looking away when you approach. So, before we start exploring the premises proper, I want to bring something up. The whole reason we're here is to retrieve the body that Mindy wants. Well, that and picking up any outsider artifacts that they've collected. If neither of these pursuits interests you, then this building is 100% optional. You don't need to come here, and you can just speed on right past it and get to the end of the stage. Also, I am such a sick shot. At least when my target is completely stationary and I'm not moving. Don't expect me to be as accurate in any other instance. Just saying. But yeah, I just wanted to point out just how much of this mission here is truly optional. How much you can ignore if you just choose not to do it. It's rare to see something like that in a AAA title.
Body is important, even though I don't fully understand the situation. We'll wait for the Vice Overseer.
When should Byrne arrive?
He's engaged currently. He'll send someone else. Maybe Overseer Kindana. Until then, we stay where we are.
Won't the heretic's corpse attract blood flies, brother?
No.
So, as for what happened here, I was trying to be cheeky and show off that you can get incredibly close to enemies without them noticing you, only to fail to do that, turning this situation rather disastrous. Not only do both of them notice me, but they're also both dead, so that's kind of a bust for both stealth and non-lethality. So I mentioned before the fact that the stun mines having 3 charges would come up.
That's Mindy Blanchard.
I think what happened is that the 3rd charge of the stun mine ended up striking a grenade that was in the room, made it blow up, and that's what killed the Overseers. So as it turns out, upgrading that stun mine to its maximum number of uses was kind of a mistake. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined things turning out like that.
That's it. The body Mindy sent me after.
Well, it is what it is, and we have what we came here for. That said, we won't be absconding with this corpse just yet. Oh, and that door right there is the exit to the infested apartment. Just giving a little bit of positional awareness. But yes, even though our primary task, locating the corpse, has been accomplished, there are still a few outside artifacts hidden in this building. And what kind of power-abusing junkie would we be if we didn't obtain all of them? Not to mention plenty of extra lore here, involving the Overseers. Some of it being actually pretty significant. It also has extra supplies for us, which is always handy.
Sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be better to craft the music boxes at each enclave. Here in the city, for instance. Instead, they're made in a few locations, kept from us, and shipped out. It seems dangerous.
Far worse to have the knowledge and construction materials scattered across the aisles. The metals used to make the devices are unusually rare. The techniques, if applied by anyone but the most faithful, resolute Overseers, would border on heresy.
I suppose you're correct. It grieves me to imagine what cultists might accomplish if they took the music boxes and perverted them to their own ends.
Exactly, brother. Much better to protect such a powerful tool. Assemble them in secret, and dispatch them across the Empire where they're needed in the fight against the supernatural.
That was way more difficult than it really needed to be. So yeah, as far as interesting lore details go, that is one of the more important ones. One of the nuisances from the original Dishonored that is completely absent in this game is music boxes. They are specially crafted music boxes designed that when the music plays, it limits all outsider-related powers. That means any of these special abilities that you're probably used to using to get you out of tight situations. And it made any enemy carrying one of those music boxes a truly great threat. They are not in this game whatsoever, and that conversation there is pretty much the flimsy justification that the game is using as to why. Although I think the actual real-world reason is that they wanted to focus on the new enemy types that they were introducing. As we will be seeing when we actually get around to them, they are threatening in their own right. But still, having this pretty threatening elite enemy option just completely removed from the sequel is a little bit disappointing. Well, with those Overseers taken out, we pretty much have the run of the place. Quite literally too, we can run about as fast as we possibly can and no one will notice us. At least not until we're on the ground floor. So we're free to explore and find any hidden treasures ensconced within this place. Interesting that that note there pointed out 3 scriptures in particular.
Vice Overseer Liam Byrne.
Can you think of any 3 combination things that are important that we've come across before? Just saying. Also, don't miss it, it's easy to, that blueprint right there on the desk. It does stand out somewhat, the blue on brown, but I've had playthroughs where I've just completely gone past it. Even with the outline, it can be hard to notice some of the item placements. So here we have a safe with no obvious combination, and a book of the 7 scriptures beside it, with each scripture numbered specifically. Yeah, it's a simple but still pretty neat puzzle, with the game just outright giving you the answer if you end up checking out your menu. As simple as it is, I really do like it though. It rewards you, the player, for actually paying attention to all those notes you find, and not just collecting them purely out of habit. And the reward for doing so is pretty gosh darn good, an extra rune. These things are pretty limited, there's usually only 5 or 6 per mission, and with each of the powers or its upgrades costing that much, you need to pick up every one you can get your hands on. At least if you want to be super special. So after slowly descending several flights of stairs, a common feature you'll find in buildings is that some floors will be completely sealed off. I guess the level designers couldn't come up with anything to put there. We come to the ground floor of the Overseer's building. Right outside, the Overseers are preaching against the outsider and anyone using his ways, and having several outsider artifacts to make an example of.
I say this now to all.
With so many people watching and so many Overseers so close by, however will we obtain these items?
To your neighbors and
like
the
this.
Abbey of the Everyman. Princes and queens rise and fall.
Yep, and unlike the whole me trying to hide behind that one dude, this works very consistently. You'd think the dude speaking, constantly shifting around would end up noticing you, but not really. One aspect of the enemy's cone of vision in this game is that it seems to be much less than usual whenever they're involved in some sort of conversation. If they're looking directly at you, they'll still notice you, but you can get pretty damn close to them without them ever seeing you. Worth keeping in mind, especially if you're playing on the harder difficulties. So with that, we're pretty much done with the Overseer's building, so let's take that body and get the F out of here. Dropping it for a brief moment here just to check out this building. If you end up coming from the infested apartment, this building can be a useful way to access the Overseer's building. It ends up bridging the two, and has some useful supplies and notes of its own. It's the apartment of a local doctor who is trying, in the absence of the Adamaya Institution, to cure people's bloodfly plagues. For some reason, as of late, Adamaya has not been taking any new patients. Rather odd, given the fact that from what we know about its lead physician, she is very much about curing as many people as possible. I wonder what's up with that. Well, we can worry about that when we actually get to the Adamaya Institute. For now, let's return for trafficking the corpse. So the building that Mindy wanted us to bring the body to is right over here. Sadly, getting to it without freaking all the civilians about can be surprisingly difficult. Civilians aren't bothered by your mere presence, but if you're carrying a body, they tend to be a little bit freaked out. You can't really blame them. So I end up doing this awkward thing here where I just pull myself down to that spot and then quickly over to the building.
Hurry up.
and I can usually avoid most of their gazes.
You got it. Put it down in the hole.
And that's side quest complete.
Good job. Take this.
I won't ask you why you needed that. So how do I get to Addermire?
I just sent one of my boys to turn off the power to the carriage rails. When the juice is off, you can walk along the rails and get where you need to go. On the other side, there's a station that will take you to Addermire.
Better than nothing. Thanks for your help.
So, as we saw with the black market shopkeep, you can use the heart on people to get information.
This is Hollow's second in command, Mindy Blanchard. Early in life, she was someone else. Early on, she felt like she'd been born into the wrong life. So, she set about making it right. Mindy Blanchard, second in command of the Howlers. She once broke a coffin maker's arm for smiling at her. If she says she's going to hunt you down and kill you in the street, then that's what she'll do. This one answers to Paolo, who is her closest friend and knows all her secrets. She calls them her lovers, those poor souls. She goes after the rich ones who cry and faint at the first sign of trouble. She can't wait to take their pocket watches, jewels, and pride. Resents them for their easy lives. It wasn't enough just to rob them. She yelled and cursed until they cried, just like she knew they would. I've told you her secrets. Ask me no more. That's all I know about her.
So now you've been paid, hit the road.
Most people can't actually see the heart that we're holding. Only people who are touched by the outsider can, so as far as she knows, we just spent the past 2 minutes staring at her with her sword drawn. Can't really blame her for that terse dismissal then. So yeah, if you use the heart on an important character, you end up getting way more information than you do on any of the random civilians wandering about. And it's very much worth using the heart on any such important character, because otherwise you end up missing out on a lot of important details about their backstory and such. All that information that we just obtained about Mindy can be garnered from other places in the game, in this mission and one later mission where she is present. But the greatest density of details you only get by spying on their very soul itself. As for what some of those details mean exactly, I'll leave that to speculate for yourself. Although I do have my own ideas that I'll go into later once she becomes relevant again.
The electricity's off.
But yes, for going through the effort of helping Mindy with her task, she helps us with ours, having one of her boys de-electrify this railway.
Addermire Station. This should take me out to the Institute.
This gives us very easy access to the cart that will take us to Addermire. We're not going to take that path though. If we were to do so, we would end up missing out on a few key collectibles. But it just goes to show you once again how much of this mission truly is optional, and just how quickly you can get through it if all you're concerned about is getting from point A to B. We don't really need to take out this guardsman here, he's not too much of a threat to us. But we might as well anyway. We need to invite everyone to Emily's Hugs Club. We have the comfiest seats in the house. So, something you may have noticed that I haven't pointed out until now, that occasional thrumming that occurs. That alerts you to any outsider artifacts that may be near, even if you don't actually have the hideout. A useful way of locating them if you don't actually know where they already are.
Welcome to Winslow's Safes. Feel free to have a look around.
Oh, you're giving me the run of the place? Then you won't mind if I raid your cash
I have
register.
to tell myself that fixing all this will bring back prosperity.
It has the conversation to that game safe. And yeah, he doesn't seem to be bothered by us at all, so let's go steal the treasure. You would think his AI would be set to freak out when you raided his cash register, but nope. Alternatively, maybe he's just really intelligent, realizes exactly who we are, and that he'd be best off not messing with us. Anyway, for solving this fiendish puzzle, we acquire some rather nice loot, and a new bone charm. I've only been checking in on these occasionally because none of the effects we picked up have been especially good. To the point that I've actually ignored this one corrupted bone charm over here. Specific bone charms within missions are corrupted variants. These provide especially powerful effects, but also a drawback. So unless you would get especially great benefit from their positive effect, they're best off avoided. And unfortunately, the one that we found is more befitting a lethal playthrough. I totally expect that when I run through this mission as Corvo, I'll end up picking up bone charms that are best for a non-lethal playthrough. Just the game completely trolling me. So as the note that we collected below indicated, this apartment upstairs is that of Hypatia, the alchemist, the one that we are going to find in Adamaya to see if she knows anything about the crown killer. And perhaps as a preliminary step, it would be good to check out her apartment.
This must be the alchemist's apartment. Alexandria Hypatia.
You can tell because she has a painting of herself. What, don't you have a large 12-foot painting of yourself? Clearly decorating the entrance to your house? What kind of weirdo are you? So there's plenty of good things to loot here, and some interesting information as well. Also a hookah. Apparently everyone in the Empire does drugs.
I spend less and less time here at my apartment, but my
The bloodflies have flourished with all the Duke's executions.
After the horrible failures of my first serum, I'm more determined than ever to help the miners. It's not my say how hard the Duke and his cronies drive the workers, but until he sees reason, I'll do what I can to make their lives better, and to provide comfort to their families. It's my obsession, this work, and the impact it will have on the least privileged people in Karnaca. Studying the original plague elixirs, I'm close to something.
When I find Hypatia, I'll see what she knows about the Crown Killer.
So, to reiterate, even though the game did a pretty good job of explaining itself, Alexandria Hypatia was studying the original two plague elixirs from the first game, Sokolov's health elixirs and Piero Joplin's spiritual remedies, in trying to derive a new formula that would help with the curing of bloodfly fever.
Maybe my teeth are due for their monthly cleaning.
She succeeded, and that is the Adamaya solution that we have been using up till now to restore our mana. Arcane generally does an excellent job of tying any game's mechanics things to actual in-setting details. It's an attention to coherence that most other developers probably wouldn't bother with. And that is part of why I love Arcane as a studio. So another reason to head up to the top of her apartment is it gives you a great spot to access the roof of this building, which is far and away the easiest way to get across it. And just showing off a power that we will be using many times in the future, Domino. What you do to one enemy, you will do to any others connected to that initial one. And as you upgrade it, you can chain more and more enemies together. Much like Dark Vision, it's not a terribly flashy power, but it is incredibly useful. And even though there's no great fanfare, here we are at the end of this mission. The carriage that will take us to the Adamaya Institute is directly below us, but of course it's fairly heavily guarded. The thing is, even if you're playing through stealthily and trying to ghost, you don't actually have to worry about them. As long as you drop down and interact with the carriage smoothly and quickly, they won't actually have enough time to notice you, and you can abscond with your ghost status intact. I failed that here, but I also got detected earlier on in the mission, so that doesn't matter so much. And that's it for Mission 2, At the Edge of the World. It's a gorgeous area, and despite the fact that the level is laid out in a fairly linear path, there are a lot of choices available to you as far as progression goes. You can skip large chunks of the mission, which we did just there, skipping directly over the carriage building. Don't worry though, I'll show it off as Corvo. I skipped it here just because it doesn't have any notable collectibles. But yeah, that's it for Mission 2.